Welcome to the tail end of another year, and once again, it's time to strap on the hazmat suit. The worst and most disappointing video games of the year. 2025 was one I considered skipping, actually. We've reached the point where the amount of truly terrible games has started to decline. In years past, the gaming community would be laughing about some absolutely unplayable stinkers. This is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5's, the Ride to Hell Retributions, and Lord of the Rings Gollums. The Looney Tunes world of sports existing for some reason. 2025 has overall been a pretty awesome year with a lot of fun bangers, both indie and high profile, with the amount of bottom of the barrel releases being minimal. The most notorious negatively received game this year was MindsEye with a super low 37, which apparently doesn't even crack the top 20 lowest on that site, which meant we had to go digging. So, as per usual, we'll be covering some of the worst as well as releases that I felt were personally disappointing. Games like Front Mission 3 Remake with its bizarre Gen AI upscale art, or Hotel Barcelona's gameplay falling really short of its premise and the names attached. Cause, I mean, really, do you care about Tamagotchi Plaza? Sure. Is Switch 2 Welcome Tour terrible? Nah, it's not really anything, but it's certainly got more charm than Bomberman Act 0. So yo, it's Austin, and today we're getting into the worst and most disappointing video games of 2025. This year I had to dig a lot deeper due to a lot of the mainstream stinkers being more like meh instead of straight up bad, which was made doubly hard by the sheer amount of slop on digital stores to sift through. Anyone want to play Anime Mother Life Simulator? Yeah, no. We've got a lot of nonsense to get into today, but before we get started, today's video has been sponsored by Bellroy. Looking for any last minute gifts? Bellroy is an accessory brand company focused on creating a strong sense of style while using recycled fabrics as well as leather with the least amount of environmental impact possible. They've got high quality picks for all sorts of needs, be it an RFID safe wallet, commuter work bags, iPhone cases, and even carry-on bags. Bellroy products are made to last and are designed and headquartered in Australia. Land down under. Bellroy sent me two things that I was looking at, the first of which was the hide and seek wallet. It's a slim all-rounder with a classic look, able to hold several cards, and has some secret storage as well. I also went with the transit work pack, because I find myself traveling here and there and needing to carry things around in, well, a non-bulky manner. But this thing does hold a lot. It's nice and incognito for office settings, and has several little hidden pouches you can use. And it's nice to know that Bellroy is B Corp, which means that all of the materials are responsibly sourced. Bags like this one are made with recycled sources like plastic water bottles and fishing nets. So if you use my link in the description, you'll get 10% off anything on Bellroy.com, so if there's anything you're looking forward to, now's a perfect time. You can also scan the QR code on the screen. Make sure to use one of those at Bellroy.com to save 10% today. Thanks to Bellroy for the sponsor, but for now, it's time to dive directly into the bottom of the barrel. Let's not waste any time. I've got one major question today. Is MindsEye really that bad? Yeah, that's exactly how Robot Wars would probably go. It is really difficult to explain what MindsEye is. At first glance, it looks like this random, lackluster Grand Theft Auto clone, but that hole goes way deeper. And still, let's speed through some of this. MindsEye was teased at the end of a trailer for a game called Everywhere, a MMO platform by a developer called Build a Rocket Boy. This studio was founded by ex-Rockstar North President Leslie Benzies, and their goal seems to be to create a hybrid of Roblox and Grand Theft Auto Online. But before releasing that, Rocket Boy teamed up with the creators of Hitman, IO Interactive, to publish One MindsEye, a game with minimal hype. I played this a few patches in, so some of that 3 out of 10 mess has been cleaned up. Just a little bit. You're playing as one Jacob Diaz, ex-military who's been implanted with a neural enhancement, the MindsEye, which gives him memory loss and a myriad of issues. In the beginning, you're seen phasing between like a combat operation and just chilling in your friend's house, before suddenly making your way to the Silva Corporation, where you're given a job to help find robots who have gone rogue. Also, what kind of tour guide makes you drive yourself around on the first day?
And where you got that implant?
It's deactivated. I listed it in my employee declaration.
They aren't even acknowledging it. And this is a really big issue with MindsEye. It's clearly got a lot of that Grand Theft Auto DNA, but is completely lacking the sauce, the layers of interactivity. Heck, it's missing the open world as well. This is technically a big map, but you can't drive off course, otherwise it'll tell you to go back to the mission area. The whole shtick is basically going from point A to B, shooting the guns for the mission, driving some more with no exploration in between, and they even added the ability to skip the driving sequences. It all comes off like a game that was not ready to be released in the slightest, and I'm playing a version that's gotten several months of patches. You can tell there's a good bit of budget thrown at the wall, and some of the visuals are really nice, but it's just so formulaic, vapid, and boring. The characters aren't memorable. The cutscenes are just people describing things happening. And for some reason, there's a random CPR minigame. It's got the kind of jank that you would expect from those review scores, and it's just not very fun. And this is where the whole story would normally end. However, with MindsEye being part of this whole everywhere thing, it's recently been completely rebranded. You boot this bad boy up on the PlayStation 5, and the pre-launch screen now says MindsEye, an ever-expanding gameplay experience with endless new playable content. That's right, MindsEye is a games as a service.
Ready or not, play my games, all I'm asking.
Introducing Build.Arcadia, the new world of missions, races, puzzles, and challenges. Races that were clearly clips of someone not racing someone. Now when you launch MindsEye, it boots you into a menu where you can select one of different game modes to play. There's no title screen, but a little box that says Play MindsEye Campaign alongside a bunch of other things. This new engine comes with a tool you can use on the PC version to make little missions, and well, I'm playing the console one and I can't find any that aren't created by Build-A-Rocket-Boy. But hey, they added a few sections into the single player where you can walk into a World of Warcraft looking portal to be yeeted into another dimension, in your mind's eye.
That was insane. Who were those guys? I felt like I was him.
At this point, I'm not really sure what MindsEye is supposed to be. The reception at release was bad. They've been through a set of layoffs, and I doubt that IO Interactive's gonna publish anything else after this, and yet they're still supporting it and the eventual release of Everywhere. I'm just unsure of what they want to do, but it's got the lowest Metacritic score of the year, so here you go. A weird, kind of boring, and uninteresting Grand Theft Auto clone that looks like it wants to eventually become a set of custom Minecraft servers. Like actually, I think that's what they want. I mean, sure, the game is technically getting better with patches, which apparently also meant removing the open world segment you unlock after beating the campaign. Rest in peace, Can't Drink Dust Guy. Overall, MindsEye is a video game.
Go home, get some rest. I'll be in touch.
This is boring. Delete.
Go home, Diaz.
MindsEye ain't great, but I don't think it's definitively the worst video game of the year. There's usually a subcategory of games that takes that cake, and if you know it, you know it's licensed games. I don't know who out there thought that Terrifier should get itself a video game, let alone an artcade game. Well, what's an arcade? Is this artcade? Yo, is that Chris Jericho?
Well, wipe your ass and get down here, pronto!
I don't know too much about Terrifier, but that they're a trilogy of indie gore-centric slasher flicks that got themselves a nice cult following. They follow the horror escapades of one Art the Clown, hence the artcade, I suppose, and well, I'm not sure it's for me. It's a whole lot of gratuitous violence with a freak show of characters. Just one that started on a shoestring budget, a failed Indiegogo campaign, into the latest grossing over $90 million. October 2024, they announced Terrifier, the arcade game, with an animated cutscene and some gameplay looking an awful lot like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. In fact, some of the sprites were ripped from that game as placeholders. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. Fast forward to the year 2025 and, well. What am I looking at? Are these just bit-crushed PNGs?
Say cheese, motherfucker.
We got bit-crushed dialogue too, and don't forget the big one, bit-crushed gunshots. Bro, what? I made better blasting sounds out of my mouth. Terrifier the arcade game is as bad as it looks. It controls as bad as it seems, worse even. You've only got a single strand of combos, a heavy attack that'll bounce people around, a run button, and a special move that'll drain your meter. And not all of those are made equally. You get a choice of playing Art the Clown, Chris Jericho, or one of the other two as you go left to right killing people without mercy. Restore a bit of the meter by doing the fatality kill, which splatters blood and gore across the screen. It's all very edgy in a way that's not super entertaining. Look at the clown. Yeah, that's Terrifier. I could see what they were going for, but the execution is poor. horror. I still don't know how you mess up a beat 'em up, a genre practically perfected in the late 80s, but this slow plotting movement, limited interactivity, and boss fights you can cheese out with special attacks, ain't it? Especially when it occasionally soft locks you out. I went into this cave and well, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Like, MindsEye isn't great, but Terrifier the arcade game is far, far more painful to play. And at 1999, there's way better beat 'em ups out there. 15 for Scott Pilgrim, D&D Chronicles of Mystara, Castle Crashers sure beats the heck out of this. Keeping with licensed beat 'em ups a bit longer, who out there asked for an HD version of Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles? While it has been slightly updated with better platforming segments than the awful ones you saw in the PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast versions, it's still the same ridiculously hard, janky side-scrolling beat 'em up, complete with that horrifying early 2000s CG. This one's for the Episode 1 lovers, or those who just want to revisit their nightmares. Which brings us to the one, the only, the omnipresent in every yearly video, Game Mill Entertainment. The people who brought us such cherished hits from the past, like Zombieland, Double Tap Road Trip, Skull Island, Rise of Kong, G.I. Joe Operation Blackout, and oh so many more. This year they actually put out a decent amount of stuff, some of which was actually okay, but not before delivering 2 games worthy of this video. They just also both happen to be racing games. Hot Wheels Let's Race Ultimate Speed. What was that? Hot Wheels Let's Race Ultimate Speed is not just a mouthful, but a licensed game based on the new Netflix show. Yeah, I had to put a buffer between this and Terrifier. It would have been too jarring. Hot Wheels Let's Race is very much a kid's show, and what they've made is a kart racer starring that world and cast of characters. This one was developed by Bam Tang Games, who brought us Nick Kart Racers, Avatar The Last Airbender, Looney Tunes Wacky World of Sports, you know the shtick at this point. It's this very run-of-the-mill racing game, very similar to Nick Kart Racers, aimed at children, way too simplistic for an older audience, and lacking a lot of depth. Now, I love the idea of a Hot Wheels racing game. Unleashed a few years ago was pretty tight. Ultimate Speed feels like they reskinned one of their other racers, did the bare minimum for the license, and let it rip. Sure, there is some customization. You can put stickers on cars that will give you abilities, and there's even a custom track creator, but it's very basic. There's also this odd mod system where you equip a track part that'll then insert itself into a stage. And there's one for each of the people you're racing against too, so at a certain point, every stage becomes a highly derivative version of the same stuff you've seen before. And double that up with the fact that it's all bright orange, and you'll feel like you're just going in circles. Normally, I'd be more lenient on a kart racer like this. I mean, people are like, it's just a kid's game. But in a year where both Mario Kart World and Sonic Cross Worlds came out, Ultimate Speed doesn't even hit the podium. But I'd still rather play it than Fast and the Furious Arcade Edition. Another year, another Fast and the Furious video game. This time not by Outright, but Game Mill. You ever go to like a Dave & Buster's or Round One and see that big Fast and the Furious cabinet? No, not the fun one from the 2000s, the newer one. Well, Game Mill decided that they were gonna work with Raw Thrills to port this down to consoles, and what we got is a game that should have been left in the arcades. At a glance, this might seem like good fun, right? Well, for $29.99, let's see what we get. 6 courses, 8 vehicles with color changes and unlockable versions, and that's it. Like, actually, there's no more stages, no online multiplayer. Heck, the leaderboards are local only, so no one can see your cool names online. This is a bare bones ass video game releasing in the year 2025, which isn't inherently a problem. You see, one of my favorite games of all time is Hydro Thunder. The console port on Dreamcast had me for months as a kid with its 13 stages and bare minimum unlocks, but also the gameplay had a bit of pizzazz to it. You needed a little bit of skill if you wanted to win. Every stage in Fast and the Furious Arcade Edition is over in 2 minutes. Like actually. And you either win the race or don't, as only the first place completes the objective, which also has no animation to it either, so it's just like an episode-ending freeze frame of you win or try again. And the AI racers are ridiculous in a way that removes all agency. Like, here, I'm in 3rd place, these cars are gonna go right, I'm gonna take the shortcut, and don't mind me, I'm just gonna materialize guys in your lane. They didn't even take the shortcut. I guess it makes sense considering the boundaries seem to be a suggestion. Multi-track, no cliff drifting. So actually, the only thing to do here is beat each stage with each car to unlock the extreme versions, which are literally the same, but with more bullshit rubber banding. Get the extreme version of your car that starts with 10 boosts and some RGB lights, and play about 13 minutes worth of content over and over for $30. Yeah, I like that they brought over the double tap thing from the arcade game where you would tap the pedal to do a wheelie, but if you hold the right trigger down and mash X, you can just do this. You can do this forever, by the way. So, where's the Fast and Furious branding? Where's Dwayne, Michelle Rodriguez? Where's Dominic Toretto? I guess Vin and everyone didn't want to lend likenesses to this because the most Fast and Furious the entire game is a PNG of the logo on the screen. There's no family here. You want Vin Diesel? You gotta be making Wheelman too. Fast and Furious Arcade Edition is a really bare bones port of a lackluster game, and having it on consoles just showcases all of its weaknesses in 4K. A game that looks amazing in a trailer, but if you got this for Christmas, I imagine that it would just end up in a GameStop dumpster. Has Fast and Furious ever gotten a good game? At this point, we might need to nominate them for worst licensed game franchise of all time, because by God, they've done it again. Y'all just make Spy Hunter. You can even bring back The Rock.
Didn't anyone ever tell you it's rude to point?
Fast and the Furious Arcade Edition might seem like the bottom of the barrel, but we're not even close. I mention this every year, but if you really take the time to like browse through digital game stores, it really is endless slop. Gen AI stuff, total ripoffs, and just a bunch of stuff that is absolutely worth ignoring. I just take comfort and a little solace in knowing that if you take a nice hard look, you can still find good old shovelware like 40 sports games in one. You know, the follow-up to last year's 34 Sports Games World Edition. 6 more, let's go! Maximum Entertainment is one of those companies that puts out a lot of video games. Sometimes great indies, other times your 101 game collection. Like, that's actually just what it was called. Action 52 lives forever. 40 sports games in one is a game that's in the name. Play a massive collection of sports minigames without any rhyme or reason. We got archery, badminton, home run derby, bicycling, American football, but not really because you just run forward to see how long you can go. And also don't forget about boxing in an active volcano. I love just how low budget shovelware this actually is. When you're playing games with multiple NPCs, sometimes they have a single AI pattern they use and will not break from it. Me and the squad in complete unison. Once you've played through some of the games, you can do a tournament, or heck, check out your customization rewards in the 40 sports games in one battle pass. I mean, yeah, this thing kinda sucks. You can get a platinum trophy in a matter of hours if you desire. The games have little to no challenge, and all of these animations look janky as hell. I don't think anyone out there is buying 40 sports games in one and expecting a masterpiece, but I sure am glad this type of shovelware still exists. There's 101, also Winter Games Collection plus Advent Calendar. Play a new game till Christmas every day, quality be damned. Maybe I'll catch y'all next year for 46 sports games in one Galaxy Edition. Hopefully it'll maintain the same bar of quality.
This shit ain't nothing to me, man.
One of the lowest reviewed games this year was a title called Ambulance Life, a paramedic simulator. Swinging in with a 44 on Metacritic, it seems to be a poorly optimized, buggy mess with a decent concept. I love a weird simulator title. Power washing always hits that weird itch. TCG Card Shop Sim has me ripping packs and counting stacks. There's usually a new flavor of the month that hits and is worth checking out, but it seems like Ambulance Life failed to stick. No updates since April either, so it's safe to assume they're dropping support. A shame. However, there's one game from the bottom of the Metacritic barrel I want to talk about at length, and it's something from a developer we've unfortunately brought up before. When it comes to Compile Heart, the quality is really a flip of the coin, and this year's Scarlet Salvation is rough.
because its destination doesn't change arbitrarily like the rest.
Don't let it fool ya. Sure fooled me. Scarlet Salvation is a bullet hell roguelike third-person shooter. Now, this sounds like an awesome idea, and it was when the name of the game was Returnal. Scarlet Salvation was basically Compile Heart trying their hand at one of the best PlayStation 5 games, and well, the story's in the Metascore. Scarlet Salvation really feels like Returnal, but worse, and I love that game. You start off playing as Willow Martin, an amnesiac robo-soldier who spawns into this world being assisted by an AI companion called, well, AI. He says vague things about the state of the world as you try and make your way up through endless floors of dungeons and robots while having a little back and forth. And I do mean endless, but instead of waking up from nightmares, you respawn in this tube thing with a number that increases on your face. Was it all a dream? Was you a robot? Who knows? So the concept and story are kind of similar to Returnal. How's the gameplay? It is the same, but so basic and just so boring. There's a handful of different weapon types you can pick up, some with elemental procs. You can destroy robots to get a currency to bump their levels up. However, each floor is long with a ton of rooms to go through. There's only a small list of enemy types to fight, so you'll quickly run out of surprise. You just pop into a room, get greeted with various metal shapes firing purple orbs, pick up items and power-ups, move to the next room, rinse, repeat until you hit the next floor. Each floor can take between 10 and 15 minutes. There's 5 to 8 before a boss and a total of 3 zones to visit. Oh, and they all look exactly the same. We got Factory Zone Normal, Factory Zone but cold, and of course Factory Zone Hot. And guess what? Fighting doesn't even matter. As you explore dungeons, you'll naturally find weapons with a better level and attack power. You don't actually need to clear out all of the enemies in a room to progress to the next one. Those doors are always open, at least on the standard difficulty, meaning it might actually be a better idea to straight up ignore everything. Just run past all the dudes and go to the next floor. And if you die in the boss fight, don't worry, you can just restart on that floor and grind it out. I've never played a roguelike that actively rewards the player for not playing the game. But I guess that makes sense considering there's no substantial character improvement when you die. You either start again from the first floor or resume from the floor you just died on. I'm not really sure as to what Compile Heart was trying to do here, which sucks because I mean, yeah, Returnal but anime is not a bad idea. But the game they made is a total drag with subpar shooting, massive maps that take ages to explore, and even when you're just running through floors without shooting anything, it still takes a while. They're huge. And considering this isn't a normal Compile Heart shindig, I'm not really sure who this game was for, but I guess it makes a little more sense when it slowly reveals its power level. You start with a big old suit of armor, which breaks off, and then on further replays, that turns into, well, you know. Despite this being a totally different idea, it is Idea Factory. It's not every day we get a clone of a newer release, especially something as unique as Returnal. I just wish that it had any sauce. Scarlet Salvation is a cold, wet noodle.
I've seen no sign that you've eaten anything. Unless you're secretly sneaking some snacks.
I haven't been snacking.
Scarlet Salvation is a game that I didn't have any hype for at all. So looking at it, it was more like a pure curiosity. There's no disappointment to be had considering I only found out about it doing research for this video, which brings me to my final and most personal section, disappointments. I think a lot of people will conflate disappointing and bad into the same concept, but I don't necessarily think that's true. For example, I don't think that Hotel Barcelona is a bad game, but it sure was disappointing. Never heard of Hotel Barcelona? I wouldn't blame ya. This thing had practically no marketing, which is crazy because it's the first video game featuring a team up by Swery and Suda51. It's also kind of a peak idea. Let's take 80s American slasher horror and weirdness, combine it with the bizarre punk rock minds of 2 auteur game devs, and give us a 2.5D side-scrolling action roguelike. Japanese-made Dead Cells, but goofy. I'm in. However, the systems just don't come together. White Owl Inc. is the developer, responsible for all the jank you know and love, but their idea for the roguelike doesn't quite work. You're playing as Justine, a baby federal marshal who ends up stuck in a hotel with a mind shared by one Dr. Carnival. Together you can become a Super Saiyan cool person with a character design that rules, and you go into what's essentially the set of various movies to fight a boss, and it's all fun and games until you have to actually control the character. It is incredibly stiff and imprecise to control. You get stuck in animations for long periods of time, and it's easy to just fall to your death. That means we got precision platforming and combat in a roguelike setting where you die and get thrust back to the beginning, and that's not great. Sure, you'll get an enhanced moveset over time, but the additions never stop having this weird delay. You can die really fast, and I guess that's what they want because of the phantom system. If you continue doing the run in the exact same way, you'll get little phantoms that'll mirror your past actions, which doesn't help too much when the enemy placements and types are all randomized. The roguelike elements are all very bog standard, with you getting multiple types of currencies, all organs from enemies that'll disappear on a new run. You'll spend those plus money, get new abilities, combo strands, and weapons, most of which feel not great. I love looking at Hotel Barcelona. I love the ideas and the presentation, but the gameplay is a total letdown. Not to mention the generative AI elements that included a few voices and visuals. White Owl did thankfully run this back and removed them within a week of launch, which I love to see, but still. The damage was already done. I think there's a good game somewhere in Hotel Barcelona, and I was expecting a decent amount of jank, but it never quite crossed over into the fun jank zone. But speaking of generative AI, wow, there sure were a lot of games that crossed into that this year, some of which for no reason. Call of Duty was using it for in-game visuals and calling cards, Arc Raiders with voice acting, the Altars with background text, heck, even the new Everybody's Golf used it for grass, I guess. One of the most egregious and totally unnecessary was Front Mission 3 remake using generative AI to remake art assets, including stuff in the computers where it then all looks totally wrong. This is a huge shame because Front Mission 3 is a classic. Another remake that was a disappointment, Sacred 2 Remastered. I'm a huge Sacred 2 fan. The Blind Guardian music video sticks out in my head to this day, but whatever they brought to storefronts in November is like what you shouldn't do with a remake. The PC version is filled with bugs, crashes, and a laundry list of complaints, but the console port is a joke. The original action RPG, Sacred 2 Gold, had a console release with both online and local cooperative, and that has been completely removed from the experience. Sacred 2 is listed as a single-player game on consoles, which is wild, and it's also $10 more. How did this happen? Apparently they are working on a solution for some of this, but at this point, if they were gonna release something with the words remaster on the cover, it should at least be as good as the original. How about Tribe 9? I was really looking forward to Tribe 9. Akatsuki Games teamed up with 2KO Games to try and make a multimedia franchise called Tribe 9, essentially a dystopian future killing games type of deal, but with a world centered around XB, that's short for Extreme Baseball. Yeah, it's like Danganronpa, but you hit the ball. They made an anime in 2022 and launched this free-to-play gacha game earlier this year that immediately got crushed. The pull rates were way too low out of the gate. They did work with the community to try and turn it around, but I don't think anyone really cared about this one. In a sea of free-to-play gacha stuff everywhere, Tribe 9 didn't stand out. Which sucks, because the story and gameplay was pretty good. I really hope they can resurrect this as a normal single-player title that you'd spend like, I don't know, $40 to $60 on, because the concepts they had were really well done, but as of November 25th, 2025, it no longer exists. This game is gone. At least 2KO's 100 line, Last Defense Academy, seems to have been a hit. It should come as no surprise that Civ 7's a disappointment. Beyond all the performance issues at launch, it's also just following an unfortunate cycle of all these games now. 2K and Firaxis get a functional game out the door with way less content than the previous entry. People are upset and stick with the older one until the newer one gets a few expansions and updates, and then it suddenly becomes really solid, playable, and eventually the game that it should have been at launch. This happened with Civilization Civilization 6. This happened with Civilization 5. And I love both of those games. I'm only disappointed because both Firaxis and the fan base deserve better. And I'm sure Killing Floor 3 fans feel the same. What should have been a shoo-in has become a whole plethora of mixed reviews on Steam and the latest free PlayStation Plus title a mere half year after launch. Killing Floor is a weird franchise with a simple concept. You fight off a bunch of waves of zombies until the last one when a boss pops up. GG, well played.
Loads of money.
The first game was a staple of Steam with its grisly style contrasting with the campy dialogue and characters. The second is a bit more divisive, but took off in the mid-2010s, amped up the goofiness, and had a pretty solid run. But I guess in needing to continue to monetize everything, it had a ton of paid season passes and bits that eventually made its way into being another full game, Killing Floor 3, a self-proclaimed attempt to recapture the darker tone. The game we got feels okay, but the modern gameplay treadmill design just doesn't work as well as good old Killing Floor. Load into a lobby, shoot stuff, have a laugh, you know. Now you gotta do missions inside the survival maps, some of which don't work. Slowly unlock skill trees, plod through multiple battle passes, Helldivers 2 style, and, well, not every game needs this. Killing Floor 3 functions, but as it stands, it's an investment. Let's hope Embracer Group feels the same way. One more quickie, Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game, is the first major release by Weta Workshop. Like, Weta Workshop has a video game division, and I was actually looking forward to this one. I mean, the concept's a banger. It's a life farm sim based in the Shire, the town of Bree. You're a hobbit. You're running around doing hobbit things and hoping you aren't raided by the forces of Sauron. What's not to like? It seems like they took the idea of cozy very seriously though, as Tales of the Shire is low-key. There's no conflict in this game whatsoever. It's cute, you run around and make friends, you hit random on the naming thing and end up with Pearl Roper. Yeah, perfect. You can forage for stuff, go fishing, redecorate your house, manage your garden, do all sorts of cooking, invite friends over for snack time, and, well, that's it. Very quickly, I felt how shallow the experience is compared to other life sims, especially ones from this year like Room Factory Guardians of Azima and Grand Bazaar. It's the type of game where you saunter around waiting for stuff to happen, for people to show up to dinner, for your plants to grow. I mean, there's literally a frolic button. Go Pro Roper, go! Unfortunately, the console version of this has a lot of technical issues, even more on the Switch, where it do be looking like a Switch game. I don't think Tales of the Shire is bad by any means, but its total lack of multiplayer, city customization, and deep systems make it an unfortunately shallow experience. It certainly beats the heck out of recent Lord of the Rings games though. Gollum won the argument.
We are enemies, you and I.
And lastly, I have to talk about this. One of my favorite games of the year was Once Upon a Katamari. Also, one of my biggest disappointments in 2025 is Once Upon a Katamari. It's not for any normal reason, it's my overly obsessed Katamari brain. I can tell that it wasn't made by the original developers. If you know Katamari, you know this shtick. Pick up objects, you get bigger, you keep getting bigger until you beat the level, or pick up the entire known universe. Wham bam, thank you the queen of all cosmos. It's a simple formula with amazing music, a goofy sense of humor, and a challenging control scheme for the ages. So, mid-2025, we get Once Upon a Katamari, and almost instantly I can tell the physics aren't quite right. In the original PlayStation 2 releases, even beautiful on the 360, there's a lot of small details in the movement. When you bump into an object enough, it'll wobble, eventually allowing you to pass. Despite looking rigid as hell, Katamari Damacy and We Love Katamari have a lot of flexibility to movement to prevent the player from getting caught on stuff. Once Upon a Time will not let you pass through objects, and if something is deemed as non-interactive, you will get stuck on it. It also just stands still, it doesn't move. There's a whole lot of coming from full speed to an immediate halt in a way that's just not fun. Especially with some of the mission levels having tighter spaces to go through, like the Colosseum.
that boy ain't right.
Also, the final level doesn't have that sense of finality to me. Other games like Beautiful and Forever escalate you so far you're picking up the stars nearby, but Once stops way short of that. I like the variety of the time travel era stages, giving us that cowboy and Japanese Edo flavor that the series has been missing, but it's also missing that PlayStation 2 era shine that pushed those games into 9 out of 10 territory. Also, the in-between cutscenes aren't nearly as memorable. It's just a lot of the Queen hanging in different eras and the hijinks that ensue. I'm not gonna sit here and say that the backstory of the king shown in We Love Katamari was incredible storytelling, but I sure do remember the pompadour falling. Again, I don't think Once Upon a Katamari is bad at all. I think most people aren't gonna care about any of this. The premise is great, it's creative. I love the new cousins, the soundtrack is killer, and I'm happy Katamari is getting any kind of rep in 2025. But getting stuck on walls so often is a bummer. The physics feel like a major step down from the previous games. There's a ton of things that look like you should be able to roll them up, but you can't. And you'll also have a hard time just rolling up the sides of objects. The level progression has the king yoinking you to another era randomly, even if you haven't done the finale level of it yet. You're in ancient Greece and Egypt for a cup of coffee tops. I think each era needed its own Get Big stage separate from the rest, and by the time you do the main Get Big stages, you've run the same gauntlet from the same starting point like 10 times over. I enjoy playing it, but I just don't think that Once Upon a Katamari fully captures the spirit of Keita Takahashi's PlayStation 2 duology. Katamari-ism's a banger though. And so there you have it. A bunch of personal disappointments to end the year. Kind of a bummer, huh? I'm sure I'll boot up Katamari again and be like, yeah, this rips. But there's something about like spending $19.99 back in 2005 for that original game that's just hard to beat. What are other games y'all thought were some of the worst of the year? Let me know down below and I'll try to get to them in the future. There was actually 2 more video games I wanted to talk about here, but I decided to save them for another video coming out in a few days, so stay tuned. If you liked the video, check out the sponsor, Bellroy. You can also support us over on the Patreon, join the Discord, buy a shirt over at the Pixel Empire, or just hit subscribe. Leave a comment, y'all know the dealie. Anyways, I'm gonna head out for now. I've been Austin, and I'll catch you guys next time when we talk about the most wonderful time of the year in video game format. Thank you all so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Clark Fox, Chris Shelton, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, Fragile Traveler, Hey Quiggles, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Nocturnal Nix, Pierre, Platinum Rose, Pacha Bear, Rare Find It, Ryan Siri, and Vox. Thank you all so much for your generous support. Whew, this one's coming in a little late this year. I got sick over the last couple weeks and I've been dealing with that, but we made it through. There's another video coming out this week on Christmas and video games, not just Christmas video games. I decided there's a lot of these, you'll see. I played some Marvel Cosmic Invasion, and what do you know, it's great. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Shout out to Haley for doing my nails. Okay, bye.